And here we are again. Visa, Mastercard, and obviously PayPal. Once again, still trying to take our rights away from us. Still trying to make it that they choose what we spend our money on. That they choose what is right and what is wrong for us. This is absolutely delusional. These people need to be put in their places. Thankfully, people are still absolutely calling them nonstop, sending letters and doing all other sorts of things. And these absolutely insane losers are still at it. Listen, I don't know about you, but I ain't no Asmongold. I ain't gonna lick the boots of the corporations. I ain't gonna want to give my rights away for the government, for them to never be seen again. Just in the stupid guise of, oh, why don't you want to give your rights away? It's for your own good, don't you see? You stupid person. We know what's best. No, you don't. You're like out of touch, absolute insane dictators that have absolutely no idea how the world even functions. Trying to make decisions from your ivory tower of multi-million dollar mansions and not understanding what real life is all about. Now, I am tired of this.
Who controls what games you can buy? The answer sadly is not Steam, it's not developers, and it's not even governments, because this week actually proved that it's Mastercard. They can fine platforms $200,000 for selling games with, quote, no artistic value, because apparently Mastercard are the judges of artistic value. But here's what Mastercard did not expect.
It's just getting more insane. How the hell does MasterCard think that it gets to choose these things for us? It's just insane. And the fact that they're trying to lie to us and saying, "Oh, we don't want our payments to be associated with these purchases." There's not a single person in history who has ever once bought something and thought, "Ah, yes, this purchase reflects MasterCard." Or we no, it has never happened because it doesn't happen.
They did not expect thousands of gamers flooding their call centers, and that actually working. And with that happening, the payment processors are beginning to crack. We've even got Valve making big statements. The payment processors even finally admitted a little bit of a truth that lies beneath all of this. It's a humongous story, and so it's actually understandable. We've got to begin with collective shout. But hang on a sec, I've got something really cool. So, do you know what's not?
Oh wow, this is not the place to insert the sponsor, my dude, not gonna lie.
Let's start with the people who kicked this off. Activism group Collective Shout decided to set the record straight. Obviously, they really did kick quite the hornet's nest. So, they say that they're fighting false claims and misinformation, and here's their story, at least as they present it. They say they only reached out to payment processors after Steam ignored them since April, and their post stresses something that they say is very important. The Collective Shout never asked Itch to remove all adult content, just content that
More lies. Everyone knows this is lies. If this was not the point, then why did you do it? If this was not the point, what was the point in that case? And why are you happy that this happened, which is clearly not your point, but you're for some reason happy about it? Everyone knows you're lying.
involved sexualized violence and torture of women. Now, that is content that's actually illegal in some territories. Now, what they said here is partially true, but there's a little bit of a problem. Their original call to action explicitly framed these platforms as facilitating child abuse game sales. That's the thing. They didn't just say specific games, they said platform. They targeted the platforms. And that's the sort of content that would be globally illegal, and therefore very good reason for payment processors to act swiftly. So, what's really happening here? How do we actually break this down? Essentially, right, Collective Shout wants to take credit for their win, but they also want to deflect blame for...
You know what's the funniest part, by the way, about Collective Shout? These clearly childless, boyfriendless, husbandless women of Australia. It's the fact that they're now going to be a part of the Australian government. I mean, there's literally no point to be mad about the UK, Australia, and any other of these places because they're already lost. I mean, just it's over.
Or how it actually played out in the real world. They basically say that they wanted specific games to be removed, but they never back that up by actually mentioning what those games are. And then they imply that they couldn't predict how Steam and itch would react to what they did, that masses of games would end up being purged. But here's the thing, Collective Shout. Don't patronize us. You've used payment processors before. We know you know how this works. But at least for now, they're simply deflecting blame. They're arguing that itch didn't have to purge everything. But here's the problem. Realistically, they're wrong. Itch pretty much had no choice. It's a sensitive topic.
No one had any choice here. That's the big thing.
But itch has talked just about as much as they're able to. With single-digit staff, they're essentially juggling angry developers, rightly angry developers, and a bunch of technical problems on the platform. Certainly doesn't look fun. And we've got this July 28th FAQ that explained their lack of options. Essentially, right, because itch is an open platform, they couldn't just remove specific games like Steam does. That's because they simply don't know about every game. Because it's an open platform. They have a single-digit staff count. So in an ideal world, creators would just be honest about everything, and that would solve the issue. But we all know that that does not work at scale. So they essentially felt that mass de-indexing basically had to happen. At least that's their point of view. But itch does say that those games, they've been de-indexed. They're not gone. So here's what they maintain. The de-indexed or delisted content should still be available to users. That's of course as long as creators haven't went and removed the pages themselves. Now there's been confusion here, and that's down to some games. Consume Me, Last Call, and Mouthwashing were flagged by players and press. But what's odd is those games were already de-indexed before any of this stuff started. Itch's position is basically that if you lost access to a game completely, then something is wrong and you should contact them, because it ain't supposed to be like that. But then there's the payment processor problem, and that follows a similar logic. People basically pointed out their policy of withholding payments from banned accounts. Itch responded to that, saying, "We have no interest in withholding anyone's earnings." Basically, that policy existed before this.
I mean, none of this honestly matters because everyone knows that itch.io and Steam are not the bad ones here. Everything here happening is the fault of literally Mastercard, Visa for, well, actually being in complete alignment with insane people like from Collective Shout. And that's it. We don't need to see the excuses of itch.io what's happening. They're not the real reason this is happening. We need to concentrate on what matters, and these small problems don't matter. They're annoying, sure, yes, but how about we deal with the big stuff? The stuff that actually threatens more things.
This crisis, and it exists to stop grifters from breaking their rules and profiting. It's just that in light of everything that's happened over the last fortnight, it's, not exactly ideal. But at least for now, they're trying to look forward, so here's basically what they've updated us with. They've tried talking to payment processors, and they've gotten a list of problematic topics, and all of those topics are now banned on their store. That is, of course, even though not all those topics are illegal, and you'll need to remember that distinction, because we'll come back to it later in the video. Because, fortunately for your content listening and watching experience, that's just the start. So here's the latest development. They've actually found out how to get around this whole problem. Basically, itch can now re-index free adult content. The reason why is real simple. If the game's
free,
oh,
because then Visa and Mastercard can get to say, well, they reflect negatively on our brand. Again, there's literally not a single person in history who swiped their credit card and thought, man, this reflects my payment processor. Most people know no payment processors are a real thing.
And payment processors aren't involved, so they can't complain. And that means that going forward, there's going to be a new system. Content warning tags for anything marked not safe for work. And this will basically help the itch team start to rebuild paid access to tagged games. Because those games are going to be back, and itch is already reaching out to new payment processors. Ones that perhaps may be comfortable with these products. They're also, of course, getting some hard definitions from existing partners because, hey, no one likes a soft definition. And that brings us to Stripe. They were nice and hard. They're a titan of the digital payment industry, so their position in this actually does matter, and they told itch they can't process anything for gratification, but more importantly, two things. One, they explain why, and two, Responding to all this, Valve talked. And because of that, we're beginning to understand what the hell is going on. Valve usually says
The big one is actually Valve saying anything about this. 10, 20 years ago, if Visa or Mastercard or whoever did anything like this, nothing would have been done. Everyone would be scared shitless to actually say a single negative or bad thing about this. And now look at this. Gabe's like, I'm old, I have a boat, I have a scuba diving gear. That's what he kind of does. And that's kind of it. I'm ready to take on the payment processors. There's a chance that Elon Musk might as well make a new payment processor. Hey, everyone's pissed at this. No one actually cares which payment processor they use, really. But as long as it's a that has been for years. Big corporations, big governments, and, well, bootlickers have been trying to sell us this one thing. That people don't actually care about this, that their information is getting taken, that, they're using things that are bad. Well, turns out when people have the ability to opt out of giving their free information to people, most people press the reject button. No contemplations at all, in fact. And most people absolutely care about where things come from, how they are made, and whatnot, if it doesn't affect their lives too much. So as long as we have the ability to choose something that, is not Visa or MasterCard, if we have the ability, we're gonna choose that. Of course we're gonna choose that.
say very little until they're absolutely forced, but obviously it's been a spicy few weeks and they've taken quite a lot of actions. And that means we've got a perfect, I mean perfect case study. Meet Vile Exhumed. Lovely name for a lovely game. It's from a solo dev and boutique horror publisher called Dread XP. And this game was close enough to release to actually have reviews in the press. But it's now not going to launch in Steam. The store page? Gone. The 3,000 plus wish lists? Deleted. And that blows because that is a real asset for a game developer. And honestly, if you're not in Steam, you're really going to struggle in sales. Now, all this happened after bouncing around the approval process for a month, and the denial reason was this, quote, sexual content with depictions of real people. But here's what's important, right? And it's...
Wait, but why is that bad? What if the real people consent to... That's a wild one. Because that just blanket terms pretty much everything?
It's weird. Vile Exhumed is a horror game that's not meant to be exploitative. It's basically one of those fake desktop indie games. The whole thing is you unpack a mystery through FMVs and text logs. It explores misogyny and parasocial relationships via implied adult content. Now, the point is the player should feel uncomfortable. That's entirely the point. And it should have sailed through approval when you look at its content, especially with an established publishing partner. But this week it didn't. And without a statement from Valve, we really couldn't know what's happening internally. So the good news is we do have a statement from Valve. To hit Valve's response, I first got to tell you what they've responded to. So Mastercard put out a public statement on, quote, recent headlines on gaming content. Hello. Anyway, they explicitly deny asking any platform to restrict sales. And they say that they haven't...
Oh yeah, we already know this. This is a bunch of typical lies. The fact, by the way, that this is specifically a thing. Is this Visa or Mastercard? I don't even know, and I have one of those. This is... Actually, I have no fucking clue. This is... It must be Visa. No, Visa is blue. This is Master. Bro, the fact that, by the way, this logo is here, and I use this garbage. It's on my credit card. I just checked my things here. And I had trouble remembering which one is it, because I don't give a shit. I don't care which payment processor I'm using. I care which bank I'm using. Like, no one cares. No one even knows you're real.
Actually evaluated a individual game. Their claim is they allow all legal products to be sold. They only ban illegal purchases. Visa actually told customers the same thing, which would certainly make the last few weeks really confusing, wouldn't it? because lots of perfectly legal content has been delisted from these stores. And well, that is why Valve kind of just went and shot Mastercard and Visa down almost immediately. So, Valve released a rare statement to Kotaku, and here's what they revealed. Mastercard refused to talk to them directly. So that blows. Instead, what happened is Mastercard talked to their network of payment processors and banks, and then those middlemen then went and talked to Valve. And they basically refused to accept Valve's own content policy. They said that Valve must follow Mastercard's rule 5.12.7, which is thrilling. What's that rule? Well, that rule does ban illegal content, sure, but it also says any content that, quote, reflects negatively on Mastercard can be banned. Or, this is the real
yeah, we know this. This is, again, just a blanket thing to encompass everything.
banger, content that, quote, lacks serious artistic value. I'm really glad that they are the people who now, yes, judge what serious and...
They are the people that are gonna literally go to a modern art exhibition, aka a painting of a canvas just painted black, or maybe if you're lucky, half of it black, and they're gonna be like, that's definitely 10 million. Oh my god, this is just so stupid.
unserious artistic value is. Cool, awesome that payment processors are now the judges of art. Fantastic. And if you breach that rule, MasterCard can revoke your ability to process transactions and impose a 200 grand fine. And that's where this all falls apart. It's also why Rule 15 exists on Steam. That was the rule, if you remember, basically said any content that may break payment processor rules.
The new rule.
Valve basically can kick that off Steam. Because, well, turns out this, what we just talked about, explains why Valve said may break. Really blows. Now, the content that's been removed, well, unless you're in specific territories looking at specific games, it's legal. And this is where Stripe then come in. Stripe confirmed this in their response to Itch. They said they can't process anything related to gratification. And the reason why? Well, according to Stripe, it's restrictions placed on them by their banking partners. Not by the law, by banking partners, because ultimately it's about risk management. It's PR risk of being targeted by groups like Collective Shout, so hello again to you guys. But there's also a higher risk of chargebacks on adult products, and this would be one of the unit economic problems that we'd be dealing with here. And as GameIndustry.biz highlighted, basically they're losing money on refunds from embarrassed customers. But I think what's kind of key is that over these last few weeks, the real challenge to this whole system has actually been you. Turns out rebellions can kind of work, so the internet exploded with stories, YouTube did, it was quite a time. People were reaching out to Visa and Mastercard.
By the way, it's still a pretty big thing. People are still talking about this, obviously. This is not going away anywhere. We have seen these outcomes far too many times to just ignore it.
Mastercard just inundating their call centers. Yeah, so you're working in a call center, maybe you're a robot, who knows, but just legions of gamers over the horizon, flooding your phone lines. Now, this then meant that scripts circulated, because, as you know, call centers all rely on scripts. And because people got scripts, well, we're gamers, we made guides, so you would basically end up with people having guides on how to reach various departments.
Absolutely based.
This would cover things like the right keywords to say, and the overall approach was never be aggressive, feign ignorance to waste their time, and some people even found a few allies working in these.
Called Visa today. The phone operator was a self-described gamer. What the fuck? When I said I have a complaint about policy, he immediately knew what it was about. Told me the call was recorded, said there was an extremely large volume of calls about the issue, and he hopes that it will make a difference. Damn.
Call centers. And what really pushed this is that many of the plans and many of the guides for dealing with these companies, well, those came from artists and creatives. And the reason why is those people have already been forced from sites like Gumroad. So basically, they've seen this whole playbook before. But this time, what's a bit different is we're actually seeing a real impact. As an example, Aftermath tracked the pattern over time, and as more and more call center resources got eaten up, the responses from these companies changed. And per their source, they went from, quote, respectful to defensive with each passing day. Others reported something that's also interesting, that across multiple...
Of course they will. Of course they will. First one is trying to ease people into thinking that you're not guilty of whatever the hell is happening. By the way, the tactics of the week. The strong. These people are not strong. They just are in position. Chances are, I don't even actually know who runs any of these things. Like, I'm in finance and I have no idea who actually fucking runs Mastercard, Visa, or any of this garbage because no one ever talks about. But all of these people are weak. And the first thing that the weak will ever always do, always, this is without question, this is how you can separate weakness from strength instantly. The weak will always try to shame you into thinking that you're being too pushy, you're being wrong, you're being aggressive, you're the bad person. The strong will never do that. The strong will instantaneously say fuck you. But not these companies, because they are run by weak people. Whoever runs this, I would not be surprised if they're like pirate software tier of Nepo baby. And things like that. Or Mudahar tier of Nepo baby, because we also know that he was a Nepo baby. So, all these things are happening.
Calls, they got different scapegoats as for who is actually to blame here. So the pressure just kept on.
And yes, shift blame. The weak should never be allowed power.
Building. These companies then felt forced to address mainstream headlines because it turned out that their whole policies designed around avoiding bad PR led to them getting bad PR. Because whenever someone like me can...
And the best part about this, obviously, is the fact, again, no one cares about them. No one ever thinks about their payment processors. Like, no one goes to sleep thinking, oh boy, I hope Visa does the right thing with their payment processing abilities. No one even knew. They don't need a policy for, these type of situations because they should never be. No one ever talks about them.
Sit down in the internet and say, hey everyone, Mastercard now get to decide what is or is not artistically valid. That's obviously pretty bad for them. Now, what all of this pressure did is kind of reveal the truth here. That this is not happening because of laws. It's happening because of these companies' policies. Now, these are private companies, and they are deciding how stores work. They're deciding how art gets distributed and what even is constituted as art. Now, Itch found a shortcut here to distribute...
Now, I'm going to assume everything that Hunter Biden does is art. Obviously. Wink, wink.
Distribute free content, and that would essentially work for now. It's a stopgap measure. Maybe some people could accept donations, or maybe you could find some of the more, just full liberal, do whatever you want, payment processors, right? To maybe do DLC. It's been a long-running thing in the Aero game sector. You get the game for free, and then there's some sketchy site you can get a bunch of DLC from it that's the real spicy stuff. But that's not...
I did not know that.
An overall market solution, and obviously there's been a chilling effect here. There's a humongous, just false positive rate that has hurt so many developers, and it just erodes confidence in the market, and that is bad for the industry as a whole. This is obviously not a viable situation. Players and platforms are looking for solutions, and the good news is, next time, we'll take a look at what the industry has proposed to fix this entire...
How about not doing anything and just fucking off? That's a great solution to problems that shouldn't exist, but they do, because someone needs to feel good about themselves. Anyway, that was Billy, your news 10 out of 10. Bye!